Waiters and waitresses of Reddit, what is the most awkward couple date you have ever witnessed at work? I work at a dinner theater, and we usually do proposals where we set up a random draw where the winner comes up on the stage to win their prize, and are then surprised by their partner who proposes. It's usually sweet and makes everybody in the room all fuzzy and warm. This one guy wanted to take it further and requested to perform a song. He brought his own music and everything. We're pretty easygoing at this job, so we agree to let him do it. We do the fake draw, the woman comes up on stage in front of a room of 400 people, and the music starts to play. Apparently this guy was a little nervous, and he compensated by having a few drinks. So what follows is a slurred performance of a song written by this guy, that seemed to focus on how he was sorry for cheating on this woman with her sister, and at the end of it, he gets down on one knee and proposes. Usually this gets a round of applause, encouraging the person to say yes, but not after that train wreck of a performance. The poor woman was just holding her face the entire time and starts shaking her head and says, "No, what's wrong with you?" She storms off and leaves him and our stage manager on stage to a bunch of murmuring from the audience. The only thing our stage manager can think of to say on mic is, "Well, that's that." The guy ended up staying for the rest of the show and had many more drinks. That was years ago and it still remains one of the cringiest things I've ever seen. They came in and the first thing I notice is that the woman was noticeably older than the man, but I don't really judge about that kind of thing, and I also don't assume people are on dates. Maybe she is his aunt? Or they are just friends. So I went to go ask about drinks and do the usual peppy greeting, and she is super chatty. Basili talks for him and answers questions that were straight for him. Okay, I think, maybe that's just how they are. Whatever. She proceeds to order them both hard alcohol straight at 10 am. I figure maybe they are on a vacation together. You never know. It finally hit me that something wasn't right was when she wouldn't stop making comments about the two, which is how I knew it was kind of a date. I am talking straight up things like, I am 53, but with the amount of work I have had done to my downstairs, he won't be able to tell tonight if I am actually 23. I am watching the man's face and he looks pained. I watch the table from afar. I realize it kind of looks like a date gone wrong, but they seem to know each other, so I am not really sure what is going on, and servers always chat and theorize about their customers in their free time, when the man gets up and comes over to me and asks me to chat with him around the corner really discreetly. So I do. He looks at me and is talking super fast as he explains that this is his boss and he has to meet with her quarterly and she just has to sign a single form to approve what he has been doing, and she insists on going out for a meal and drinking and then trying to sleep with him. Every time. I was horrified for him. He looked that panicked. He said that he usually gets her to sign it before they leave the restaurant and then makes an excuse to ditch her. We made a code sign, him patting the back of his head 3 times, so that I could intervene when she would get far too inappropriate, but honestly she didn't change much when I would come. He also asked me to bring him fake alcoholic beverages, said I could charge him for the alcohol but to make them water or just soda. I still think about him sometimes and wish I had gotten his name or something so I could check in and encourage him to report her, but in all honesty she probably owned the company he worked for or something, the way she spent money and looked like. Couple came into the restaurant dressed very goth. I wasn't their server, but I was running the cash register just a few feet away. They proclaimed to everyone that they were energy vampires, but not to fear them because they won't hurt us. They said they didn't need our food for sustenance, but enjoyed the tasted. After ordering the meal, they then politely asked the waitress if she would stick around for a second so they could feed off of her aura so they could have enough energy for the night. The waitress said okay and gave me a side glance over her shoulder that I knew meant I better get a good tip for this. The couple clasped each other's hands, closed their eyes, and made sucking sounds for a solid minute before leaning back in the seats and sighing as if they had just had a turkey dinner. The waitress was indeed tipped well for her delicious energy. Late to the party, but I will share my story. Had a couple come in one night and everything seemed to be going fine. We just hired a new server who was training and I asked her if she had any questions. She was still nervous about greeting tables, so I told her she could shadow me and watch what I do. We go over to the couple's table and all I hear from the new server is, I knew you were cheating on me. Turns out the guy was her BF on a date with his side chick and he didn't know she just got a job there. She didn't get fired for what she said. I hope she adopted that as her greeting for every table. When I was bartending, this guy came into the bar on a weeknight, average-looking guy, late 20s. He sat down and asked for a drink and told me he was nervous because it was his first date in 3 years and they had met on Tinder. He arrived 20 minutes before her expected arrival to get rid of some of his nerves. 2 hours passed and he waited for her with no text or call explaining she would be late. This woman walks up to the guy and I'm thinking, wow. She really came. She looks at him and says, "Are you Joe?" The guy replies yes and gets up to properly greet her looking incredibly excited. She says no thanks, and just leaves. What a foul creature. Joe, not his real name, and I proceeded to get way too drunk for a Tuesday. Poor average Joe. I worked at a fondue place. 1.5 to 2 hour meal for 2 people. 4 courses, the works. Couple came in and he had pre-arranged with us to present an engagement ring with the chocolate course with melted chocolate on the plate spelling "Will you marry me?" Also roses and other embellishments on the plate. Apparently the entire meal she was explaining to him how bad he was at being in a relationship. Too needy, too emotional, somehow also didn't spend enough time with her and wasn't connecting with her. It was an hour-long breakup speech. We come around the corner with candles lit and the chocolate fondue and the engagement ring on the plate. The table next to them did everything they could to wave us off. I was holding a camera to capture the magical moment, which never came. He tried to get his prepared remarks out, but it was so bad we eventually left the dessert at the table and tried to act like nothing had happened. She left before the check came. I guess you could call this a couple date. I was working at a wine bar when a married couple sat down on a pretty slow night. I went over the specials and they ordered. Once appetizers came out, the man thought it would be a good idea to serve his wife divorce papers. I did my best to avoid that side of the bar. I did bring out tissues for the wife who was breaking down. I ended up boxing up the dinner. The guy paid, but I do not envy that ride home. This happened to someone I know. It was a complete surprise to her. He had never once mentioned divorce. Things seemed to be going okay between them, and then one night he took her out to dinner and told her he had already started the paperwork. They had been married something like 15 years too. This seems to be a pattern, bringing divorce papers to dinner. I just don't get that at all. In the case of the woman I know, her then husband had had a head injury and his personality changed afterwards. She thinks it may have affected his reasoning regarding the divorce as well. Under more typical circumstances, I'd guess the partner who wants the divorce is afraid of a huge argument and figures if they break the news in public their partner will react more calmly so as not to make a scene. Personally, I'd rather get yelled at in private than have such an awkward thing play out in a public place, but maybe some people see it differently. Edit. I realize there are sometimes safety concerns that would push someone to break the news in public. That's totally understandable, but I still don't get why you wouldn't do it at a coffee shop or a fast food place, where there are no waiters and you can just get up and leave when you're done. Served a deaf couple having a fight. They went from both of them signing furiously to her crying and signaling to me for a stack of napkins for, I assumed, her tears. She whips out a pen and starts writing paragraph after paragraph angrily. It was awkward because I kept having to come back to the table since they ordered multiple courses and he was just eating and signing while she was hunched over the table writing away while crying. When they finally left they tipped me pretty well though, so I guess it wasn't too bad. I remember a deaf guy who used to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He'd kind of seek out the staff and make a big deal out of not being understood. Backfired when my friend served him, and signed really well. According to her, he could barely sign at all and he just stood there awkwardly with the rug pulled out from under him.